This is Julien, I'm here in Brussels, and this week's book is Glassjaw, a manifesto for defending fragile reputations in an age of instant scandal by Eric Desenhall. And this is actually a book that I read right in the middle of the media scandal that I was in, almost a year ago now. And obviously it's a book that I hold extremely close to heart and that really helped me understand the nature or changing nature of controversy. What he says in the book and what I wrote down here is that individuals and organizations that were once thought to be indestructible are in fact uniquely fragile in the face of repetitional attacks from conventionally weaker adversaries. Thus the boxing term glass jaw, especially with today's attacks that increasingly have a life of their own properties that fall beyond the reach of management. And what I love about this book too is that there's a lot of demystification when it comes to controversy. For example, the false expectation that there's something to win when the real objective is in fact to cut your losses. An unattractive pitch you probably would never fucking hear. So what I thought I'd do with this video here is basically share what I learned from the book as well as from my own experience. And as a little side note too, if you enjoyed this video, I highly recommend watching this one too. I'll put a link here below, a video that I recorded with Ryan Holiday, where in that video we discuss the changing nature of how the media works. Enjoy. So one thing he says in the book, and I thought I'd start with this here, is that none of us are immune. You might have heard the introduction here and thought to yourself, I guess this applies to, large corporations or public figures, but no, this applies to you as well. What he says is that few of us are exempt from getting ensnared under the wrong collision of circumstances. Have none of us ever made a snide remark about an acquaintance, written an email on a sensitive subject, forwarded an ignorant joke, made a flirty comment, done something stupid in college, been in a situation where we'd rather not get photographed, opened a raunchy or peculiar intranet link, so on and so forth. And if not, you surely are a special individual. We're all in it. If you go on the news, guess what? The news is replete with examples of everyday people who, due to foolishness or bad luck, find themselves on the receiving end of disproportionate humiliation. And another great book that touches on this here is So You've Been Publicly Shamed by John Ronson, which I highly recommend checking out as well. So understanding this, pay the fuck attention. So in terms of the changing nature of controversy, what he says here is that attacks are not new. It's not like suddenly out of the blue there are all these attacks left and right. These scandals just popping up out of nowhere. The reason, say, there are more and more scandals in the news today is largely due to, one, the powerful weapons that are now available. For example, email, thumb drives, the internet, technology, so on and so forth. And not only that, but these attacks are amplified with a combination of, and he writes this down, the anonymous platform of the internet, mass access to the tools of promiscuous leaking, a cultural fetish for self-promotion, social media's neutralizing effect on impulse control, and the rewards associated with trafficking controversy. That there is what's new. It's not controversy itself. It's not like suddenly controversy was introduced to the population. It's always existed, but what's new here, and this is key to understand, it's the conductivity of controversy. The speed and the reach. What he says is that we live in a period of chain reactions which render many controversies self-compounding. The time it takes for damaging news to spread is quicker, it goes to a wider audience more easily, and the record of it is stored digitally for longer. That there is what's new. In the past, let's just say long-form journalism that examined issues in depth could alter the momentum of a chain reaction, but nowadays such journalism for larger audiences is by and large dead. We're in a new world here, and he calls this the Fiasco Vortex, in the sense of snowball effects, vicious circles, and feedback loops that magnify destructive information and spread beyond the reach of available treatments. It's 1 part crisis and 3 parts farce. This is the Fiasco Vortex. Now in this vortex, and this is important to understand as well, it's all about spectacle, not science. Objectivity is not a legal requirement for the media, and they would rather disperse what they want to be true, versus what actually is true. And the interesting part is that we don't really care. That's what's key. It's like accuracy of information or actual facts. That's not what we really resonate with. What do we resonate with? Emotions. If I'm scrolling through, and again, I fall victim to this as well. Say I'm scrolling through my Facebook feed and I see a story that's just shocking. I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck is that? It could provoke, say, some anger, some frustration, some anxiety, some curiosity. I'm like, oh, what? I'm gonna click on that and I'll read the story. And I'll have my little hit of emotions, let's just say. If it's a strong hit, okay, you may be inclined to share it. It's like share, 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 share. There's a lot more clicks, a lot more shareability. Now let's just say that a month or two, or even 3 or 4 months later, it usually takes a while for the real facts to come out. Let's say it turns out the story was fake. Okay, it was a hoax, it wasn't real. Are you really that upset? Are you gonna write about it? Are you gonna email, let's just say, the publisher and have this huge crisis about, oh my God, I can't believe I was lied to. I can't believe those weren't the actual facts. No, why? Because you got your little hit. You don't give a fuck, okay? You care about emotions, you care about spectacle. That's just the way we're fucking wired, and guess what? That's what the media feeds you, okay? It's a frequency that transmits emotions, blame, anger, ratings, and money, not facts, okay? And you probably noticed this, okay? The stories that get passed around the most are usually anxiety and anger-inducing stories, okay? And anger, what he says here, is more influential than any other emotions such as joy or sadness. It's really when you're angry, you're like, share, 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 okay? And that's what the media wants. You probably heard of clickbait, and this is building on that. There's a public shift from being a consumer of the news to participants and antagonists. Okay, and Ryan Holiday talks a lot about this, but basically in terms of clickbait, clicks are tracked and measured in order to determine advertising rates. Okay, the more clicks, let's just say an article gets or a website gets, because everything is digital nowadays, the more that website or blog can charge advertisers, and that's what they care about. The internet knows what you're reading, it tailors its news accordingly, and it serves it back up to you as nanoseries that are quick, angry, and conclusive, so you'll do more clicking. Okay, it's all about the clicking. And another example he uses here, and this is a little bit more back in the day, is the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal. Okay, and what he says is, a lot of people were even complaining about this. They're like, you know what, I'm just so sick of hearing about the presidential sex life. I want to hear something else. But guess what? The networks would then change the story and say, talk about something else, and ratings would drop. So what would they do? Okay, back to the fucking presidential sex life, back to the fucking Clinton-Lewinsky scandal. And that's all you would see. Okay, it's all about you, what you're gonna click on, and anyway, you're now driving the news. It's not the news itself, it's not the facts, it's you and what you click on, okay? And what he also says is, in the past, the media would go to sleep, not anymore, okay? Today, if you're still talking about a scandal, you're still stirring it up in the public consciousness by talking about it, okay? In the past, there were physical barriers to stirring things up, okay? For example, finite media with firm deadlines, limited access, and almost no validating surveillance, say photos, documents, so on and so forth. But, okay, that's all changed. We went from evening news cycles in the 1980s to hourly news cycles in the 1990s to a real-time Twitter cycle in the late 2000s. Okay, and not really a cycle, basically an endless rapid-fire series of data bursts. Okay, so this here is the premise. This is how everything has changed. This is the changing nature of controversy. Now, in terms of demystifying controversy, okay, and this is really what I learned through my own experience, is first of all, understanding the dynamic at play. Okay, and what he says here is that a famous investigative reporter once asked him why his corporate clients were so terrible at defending themselves during controversy. His answer, it's not what they do. Companies make and sell stuff. Okay, they don't fight critics for a living, and they dread the very idea of a fight. Critics criticize, on the other hand. It's their entire purpose for existing. It's what they do. The reporter then answered, but the companies have all that money. And his answer, but their critics have you. Okay, and this here is key to understand. Targets of controversy have a very different mindset. Okay, their goal, what they're motivated by, is institutional tranquility. They want the enterprise to keep humming along, quietly paying dividends, and maintaining job security. Okay, that's their motivation, and understanding this kind of gives you a different lens through which to view all these different scandals. I remember, say, watching some scandals of, say, some corporate company being attacked, or even some public figure, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, what are they doing? Like, why are they not defending themselves more? Why are they not saying this? Why are they not fighting back? Like, that's a big one. Why are they not fighting back? Why are they just taking it? But, okay, what you have to understand is that their motivation is not necessarily to fight back. It's not to increase the scandal, increase the battle. It's to get out of it. Okay, it's to get out of it. What he says, it's knock this unpleasant chapter out of the headlines and get back to business. That's really it. Okay. Now, there is another belief that, well, it's an opportunity. Okay, guess what? The scandal is an opportunity to make even more sales, to make even more business. And we'll touch on that there. And that can occasionally be true, but very rarely, okay, more often than not, it's not really an opportunity, it's a risk. And again, your main drive is just to get the fuck out of there, so you can just get back to work, okay? On top of that as well, okay, issue warriors also focus far more resources to attack a target than that target is willing to devote to defending itself. And companies also don't have all day sitting around fighting issue warriors. Okay, again, they're not made to deal with threats. They're just made to keep the company fucking rolling. That's their specialty. Okay, so this is often why, if you say watch some, scandal in the news, things can be a little shocking. Okay, again, the company or the corporation or who the principal is being attacked, their goal is to do whatever it takes, and again, whatever it takes to get out of the fight, okay, to mitigate the badness. Now, building on this, okay, some of the most baseless crisis management cliches are: one, get ahead of the story. Okay, whenever you're in a scandal, everyone's like, get ahead of the story, get ahead of the story. And what he says is that this is a concept that suggests that a deft maneuver or two could have prevented the controversy. And maybe if you've, followed mine, that was maybe your impulse. It's like, just get a fuck ahead of the story, okay? But getting ahead of the story is, the equivalent of telling a cardiac patient in the emergency room, don't have a heart attack, okay? Maintaining a good diet, taking appropriate medications, and exercising contribute to good cardiovascular health. Similarly, making good products and avoiding bad behavior will reduce the chances of becoming embroiled in controversy, okay? But by the time crisis hits, the virus has already been introduced to the system. You can't get ahead of the story, okay? The catalyst has already occurred, and what he asks you is, with today's social media, which we previously discussed, how do you get ahead of something that moves at the speed of light? You can't. The second one is respond immediatly. Okay, that's the other one. It's like, hey, just respond immediately. And if you followed kind of, again, my story, there were a few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, I think, from what I recall, where there were no response. And people were shocked. It's like, what the fuck? Like, why are you not responding, defending yourself, stating the facts? And what he says here is that back in the day, okay, this translated to, respond before a reporter's deadline. Okay, that's why you respond immediately. However, okay, today deadlines barely exist because the news never goes to bed. And the logical but misplaced demand to respond immediately has sometimes pressured principals to make claims before they know the relevant facts. Okay, and that's the key. You don't just want to jump in until you know all the facts. That was what I was thinking. Like, everything was popping up. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Again, lies, false accusations, things be exploding out of proportion. Just again, I got sucked into the Fiasco Vortex, and instead of just jumping in as well and saying, oh, what about this? What about this? Like, no, it's not me. I don't teach this. Guess what? I wanted all the facts. Okay, I wanted to make an educated decision in terms of which course of action I was going to take. Okay, and he says this too. Given that no matter what you do, it'll be considered too little, too late. Like, no matter what, that's also the nature of dealing with a scandal. He recommends taking a breath before responding too quickly. Okay, we rarely know too much immediately, and as an example, the first version you hear about a troubled figure will not be the same version that you hear as the crisis runs its course. Okay, running with an early version of events is risky. And another thing is sometimes potential scandals get lost in the noise. Okay, if you don't respond, sometimes another story will pop in, and then guess what? It gets lost and no one cares anymore. And if you responded, you would spike it back up. So the respond immediately, again, that's just a cliche. Number 3, come clean. Okay, or in today's terms, be transparent. And sometimes, what he says, scandal principals mistake a therapeutic action for a strategic one. Okay, because that's really your impulse. It's like everyone's accusing you of all these things. You just want to be like, hey, no. Okay, it's like, just get it off my chest, tell the truth, and that's it. Okay, but what he says is that verbal diarrhea is always self-exculpatory and involves a lot of denial. Okay, stream of consciousness expression is inevitably fraught with half-truths, untruths, and self-incrimination, and more information can be less comforting. Okay, when managing modern scandals, the more you talk, the more it can trigger additional scrutiny. Okay, you want to limit the talking and really calculate what you say. Okay, and if you're interested too in terms of how I went about it, I only chose to do one interview, okay, which you probably saw, which was on CNN. Now, the reason being there is, guess what? I mean, I was offered interviews all over the place. Okay, I could have done 100, 200, 300 interviews, okay, if not more. Now, why did I only choose to do one? Because guess what? The more you talk, the more something that you say could be taken out of context to boost the news again, to boost the story. So the key is not just talking and you telling yourself like, oh no, it's like, I know I'm right. Guess what? Something will come up that can be taken out of context. Something can be twisted. So the key is strategically talk, and then guess what? Let everyone else quote that one interview. Okay, that's the smarter way of going about things, let's just say. And he talks about this too. It's like, just come clean. You know, that would be best. Just talk, talk, talk. His answer, best for whom? The reporter. Number 4, we've got to tell our side of the story. Okay, that kind of builds on the coming clean. And what he says here is that you can only tell your side of the story if you have a side of the story. Okay, if you have a good counter narrative, this recommends say a little bit more. If you have a weaker defense, this recommends silence. Okay, in almost every case he's ever worked on, the client believed he or she had a good story to tell. This is a wish, not a strategy. Okay, and once again, the media only wants to hear your side of the story to boost ratings and win awards at your expense. The next one is a crisis is an opportunity, and that's one we discussed before. And what he says is that the only people who believe that a crisis is an opportunity are those who have either never been through one or have had the good fortune to survive. Okay, crises seriously damage individuals and organizations. Some never recover. Okay, and I can attest to this. It's not a fucking opportunity. Okay, and when you're in it, although from an outsider's perspective, you could be thinking, damn, like all that publicity, hell yeah, that person must be really happy right now. You're not. Okay, all I'm thinking when I was going through it is like, what the fuck, get me out of this. Okay, it's not an opportunity. There's way too many risks. And what he says is that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I mean, it can be good. It's like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but that's only if it doesn't kill you. And in most cases, it kills you. Okay. If anything, the crisis is an opportunity for someone else, not the principal. And that doesn't mean, of course, there isn't any hope of surviving a controversy. I'm still here. But what he says, that doesn't mean that the principals long for the days of their near destruction. It's not like I'm like, hey, I wish I could go back in the middle of that fucking scandal. Hell no. Okay, once again, my goal, my objective is to mitigate the badness, get me out of there, and get back to business. Another one is change the conversation. What he says here is that everybody in the siege wants to change the conversation, but the reality is that the conversation can only be changed when there's something else people want to talk about. If there's nothing else that's more compelling, you can't change the fucking conversation. Okay, and good luck topping a story that everyone is, again, building on, which, evokes so many emotions. You need a story that evokes even more emotions. That's the only way you can change the conversation. And the last one here is apologizing. Okay, and what he says is that when scandal figures do wrong, and even when they don't, an apology is often the price of admission in the program of repentance. Okay, oftentimes you just can't avoid the apology. However, okay, with the apology, the besieged tend to view apologies as marking the end of a process and are often disappointed when apologizing doesn't diffuse the controversy. Okay, an apology only marks the beginning of a longer journey. It's not like you're in a scandal, you apologize, and then it's over. Okay, as you probably realize even following, what I went through. You're in the scandal, and then you realize like, oh wait, get me out of here. But this is going to be a long process. Okay, and the apology is just the beginning of that longer process, and then of course, moving forward and say rebuilding from that. Redemption takes time, as he writes down. And especially given, such variables as the nature of the sin, the truth of the allegations, and the power of the principles, at play. So in terms of apologizing, there are different types of apologies which serve different purposes. Okay, and these here fall into 3 main categories. The first is the Judeo-Christian Apology. And with this one here, true repentance is the aim and pain is the price. Okay, the supplicant admits to and genuinely regrets his or her choices and mistakes. He or she is then punished and takes tangible actions to repent. Okay, and with these apologies, they don't anticipate drive-through forgiveness. Okay, suffering is assumed, and no party favor is sought in exchange. Okay, pain has to be part of it, and then after a while, okay, hopefully they can, achieve redemption. That's the first one. The second is the transactional apology, and with this one here, it offers a display of repentance in exchange for something of tangible value. Okay, it's pretty much, I will apologize if you give me something that I want. Okay, and this is, what he says, a great option if you have it, where, the accused participate in the theater of repentance in order to stop the pain, for example. The third is the marital apology. And what he says here is that some cases are fraught with so much tension that there is no chance of a resolution until that tension is released. Okay, and just in terms of my apology on CNN, it was definitely, a mix of the three, but this was a big one here. Okay, there was so much tension, if you've been following, around the topic and the, false accusations, that nothing could happen until you got rid of that tension. Okay, and an apology can serve that purpose there. Okay, there are times when you apologize, even if you are not sure what you did, what you did wrong, or even if you were convinced you were actually right in the first place. Okay, this is the apology you issue so you can just move on and say, get back to business. Okay, and what he says is that sometimes apologies need to be evaluated in the reverse, not what the apology does, but what the absence of an apology does. Okay, he then talks about the life cycle of apology, where first there's the allegation, someone cries foul about an affront, then there's proof, evidence of the offense is produced. Number 3, the apology. After evidence is produced, the principal apologizes, usually characterizing the offense. Number 4, apology flagged. And what he says is that in the Fiasco Vortex, the apology is almost always declared to have been fumbled or too little, too late. Okay, no matter what. You look at all the scandals, my scandal definitely got that. If you look at even Tiger Woods, even fucking Bill Clinton, what do everyone say? Ugh, that apology. No matter what you do, your apology is fucked. Okay. Number 5, head rolling, contracts terminated, so on and so forth. Number 6, overkill backlash. Okay. And number 7, the anti-story. Contrary facts about the controversy may emerge that put the original events in a broader context, but usually by that point it's too late. And number 8, recovery. The principle reemerges, usually, but not always, with a smaller platform. Okay. He also talks about the ingredients of a scandal. For example, the handful of variables that affect who and what becomes a target, which targets survive and thrive and which do not. Okay, and the first one is bad facts. With most lasting scandals, there is evidence. Number 2, harm. The degree of injury matters enormously in a controversy's resonance. 3, victims. Who was hurt by the principles? Do we sympathize with them? Number 4, motivated adversaries. Who is the client up against? What kind of resources do the controversy's originators and protagonists have? Number 5, constituents. Okay, those who survive controversies usually have constituents invested in their survival. Okay, the principal isn't in the fight alone, and that could just even be long-lasting loyalty of their customer base. Okay, for example, me, the reason I'm still here is, guess what? My customers, and if you're watching this, you know me. You've been following me for quite some time. You know what I teach. There is a bond, a relationship that we form. There is loyalty. It's like, I'm loyal to you. I'm going to keep putting videos out, keep sharing content, keep trying to help you. And you're still going to be loyal by following these videos, watching them, and supporting me. And to everyone who still watches my video after the scandal, thank you. Okay, thank you for still being there, for still watching my videos. And I can guarantee in any other situation where there wasn't this type of relationship, I probably wouldn't be here. Okay, this matters. Number 6, hypocrisy. Okay, posing as one thing but being the opposite. Okay, this is one of the great catalysts in outrage. And what he says is that people who merchandise, as a little side note, their perfect lives have the glassiest jaws. Okay, we take an interest in them because we know our own lives are so flawed, and we want to watch them tumble down the stairs and end up on their rears like the rest of us. Number 7, operatic personalities. And what he says is that both the media and consumers of scandals are attracted to big personalities as crows are to shiny objects. Okay, and obviously, if you know my sense of humor, you can't get worse than that. It's like shiny object just waving over here, over here. Number 8, likability. Some crisis principles are more likable, or at least supportable, than others. Number 9, optics. Big scandals contain symbolic optics, iconic videos, photographs, documents, so on and so forth. I'm sure you've seen the photograph of me holding a t-shirt. That was definitely one of the big symbols of the controversy, or some of the pictures, or screen caps of videos, let's just say. Number 10, controversy congestion. Okay, much of what becomes a scandal is determined by what else is happening in the cultural, business, and political climate. And for me, I mean, I was really just, the scapegoat for what was happening. And number 11, resources. One of the most important determinants of who survives crises is the resources the principal has to fight back with. Okay. Some other interesting things he talks about is the controversy iceberg. And what he says is that there is a small tip that the world sees and an enormous mass below the surface that makes up the bulk and essence of the enterprise. Okay, most of what's really happening is happening in a place that few people see. The above the waterline elements of a crisis, management that people see are, for example, the TV interviews, the apologies, the product recalls, so on and so forth. That's the tip of the iceberg. That's what you see. If you followed my scandal, that's what you saw. But, okay, there is what the public doesn't see. Behind the scenes conflict avoidance, operational and strategic maneuvers, offering choices, working with regulators, and deal cutting. Okay, there is all that. There's so much more at play. It's ridiculous. Okay, so remember that. The iceberg. And some other stuff is say no. Okay, pick your battles. Not every cause is worth undertaking. Your objectives should be tied to survival and prosperity, not on taking suicide missions. Okay. There's that saying, he may have missed an opportunity to get bigger, but at the same time, he also averted an opportunity to get destroyed. Okay, be smart. The key here is kind of knowing when to shut up, knowing when to even take a punch. You got to start thinking long term. Okay, in these scandals, it's long term thinking. What he says is give somebody else a victory. If allowing an external party, even critics, let's just say, to claim victory ends the unpleasantness, so what? Okay, your goal again is to return to normalcy. He also talks about muddling through. Nobody celebrates those who improvise their way through adversity by responding minimally, seeing what turns up, bolstering the support of allies, quietly and correcting problems and missteps, and throwing a counterpunch when the opportunity arises. Okay, I mean, that's really what I did. You'd expect like fireworks in the air, but okay, it's not as glorious or glamorous, just like head down, again, minimal, just strategic little plays here and there trying to get back to normalcy, but that's the stuff that works. So, I don't know, I hope this kind of helped clear, your understanding of controversy up a bit. If you go back and kind of follow the different steps that happened to me, I hope you'll, understand that better as well, and you'll be a little bit more, let's just say, careful on your end, because once again, this happens all the time. If you do get sucked into it, I highly recommend checking this book out. Okay, on that note, check the comments, as always, here below for next week's book. And as always, until next time.